OCULUS here, otherwise known as Fluffball the Wizard. You found yourself on the channel of Fluffball the Wizard, and welcome to part 2 of my general review on the Oculus Quest. If you haven't seen my first video of the unboxing and first impressions, you can find that here or in the description. And this video is going to address a lot of the issues that I found there. First off, comfort. This thing is much more comfortable after a day of rest. It can take some getting used to and just felt kind of weird the first few times. Also, when you're adjusting this thing, make sure to put this cupped part of the strap around the base of your head, not the back. It's still a very top-heavy headset, but doing this instead of this will help tremendously. In general, make sure you actually take the time to properly adjust it as best you can for your head, including both side straps, the top strap especially, the IPD adjuster, and every time you put it on, make sure the rotation and placement on your face is exactly where you want it. Because even within just a half hour of gameplay, any tiny discomfort you have is going to be magnified and more noticeable over time when playing continuously. Another thing I tried is taping my backup battery to the back strap here. I just put some Velcro on it for now. And obviously this is ridiculous, and I would eventually get a smaller pack specifically for this purpose. But I did this for testing purposes, and oh my gosh, I cannot describe the difference it makes. Just having that counterweight there perfectly distributes the weight, and comparatively it just feels like you're not even wearing a headset anymore. I could play for hours on end like this, minus the facial foam, which gets a little uncomfortable after a while. I might put an upgrade to this in a future video. In general, I'm finding that the more I play, the more comfortable it gets, and I'm also getting used to movement in games, such as walking instead of teleporting, because initially there can be a major disconnect when you're moving in-game but not in the real world, and that can cause a lot of motion sickness. So if you don't like it the first few times, don't give up on it. Just try it a little bit, kind of ease into it, take frequent breaks, and maybe it'll grow on you like it did with me. Another piece of advice I can give you is air and water. Keep cool and stay hydrated. It helps to have a fan on nearby, maybe a window open, and also a water bottle easily accessible. If you play your cards right, you can even put it somewhere you know where it is based on the Guardian grid, and not even have to take off your headset to grab a drink. Number 2, let's talk controllers. Like the headset, I am getting more used to these the more I use them, and they're better than expected, but they do have some issues. Most of them started to show themselves while playing Beat Saber. For one, the magnetic covers did start to slip a couple of times when I was really going at it.
Doing this kind of thing, I don't think I'm gonna have an issue with that.
And also I keep accidentally pressing the menu and Oculus buttons with my thumb when I'm making big motions with the sabers. Now they do have a setting called fast movement detection where it'll ignore those buttons when you're doing stuff like that, but then that means if you actually want to pause the game, you have to hold still for a second, which in any challenging Beat Saber map will basically lose you that round. Not a lot you can do about that, just a bit of a design flaw. The tracking on the controllers is a lot better than expected, but there were a couple Beat Saber maps where I noticed it simply wasn't fast enough. Like, it's fast for what it is and more than adequate for like 98% of applications, but sometimes things are just too crazy. Also, the predictive tracking is awesome, but it's not magic. For quick motions where you need to grab something behind you or spread your arms quickly, it's pretty reliable. You can also get reasonably close to your face before it starts to trip out. However, if they're out of view for an extended period of time, or if you're really just almost touching the headset, they will lose tracking entirely until they're back in sight. Using rechargeable batteries was a good idea. I just keep a couple of spares in the bag. I swap them out when needed, put the dead ones on the charger whenever it's convenient, and that's been working really well. However, I don't know if this is the rechargeable batteries or if it's just a controller flaw, but about half the time the controllers won't wake up automatically with the headset like they're supposed to, and I have to like go in, take the battery out, reset it, and that can get annoying, but they might have actually fixed this in a firmware update because I haven't noticed it at all recently. Lastly, some general stuff with the software. First of all, I want to point out that they are rolling out updates like it's nothing, and they are definitely not nothing. Every new update brings incredible features and improvements. So much has changed since my first video, and it probably won't be the same by the time this one releases. One thing I want to talk about is light levels. Tracking-wise, dark rooms just don't work. You need a decent amount of light. But we now have the ability to turn off tracking entirely, which means you can at least use the headset in the dark if you want to just watch videos or attempt to play some games without proper 6DOF tracking. Also, in the headset, we still have no built-in way to adjust screen brightness, so hopefully we'll see that sometime in the future, but in the meantime, we do now have an innate night mode setting, which previously you needed a mod to access, but now we can enjoy those warmer color tones and less eye strain right from the main settings. The pass-through camera has also undergone major changes, and it feels much more natural now, like you're actually looking at the real world through your own eyes. Things start to get a little trippy when they get too close to your face, but I'm sure that'll be improved in the future as well. With the camera improvements, within the most recent update as of filming this, we have one of the most exciting things ever to come to the world of VR, especially with an all-in-one system like this, and that is hand tracking! This is so cool! Now, of course, at the time of filming, this is still an experimental feature, so we can't really use it outside of the main menus and built-in apps like browser and Oculus TV. And of course, it's far from perfect right now. There are some gestures that aren't really recognized, and especially occlusion, your hands just disappear. But it's a huge step in the right direction. And this is what technological development is all about. You let people know that it's not done, but we still get this awesome opportunity to try out what they've got so far. For example, I can sign some ASL. I took ASL class this year, and sign language in VR would be awesome. I can fingerspell most letters here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q. Okay, it has trouble with down letters, like putting your hand down, it just doesn't recognize. And also it has some trouble with R, my fingers don't really cross. But anyway, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. So yeah, super excited to see what we can do with hand tracking in the future. Also, the advanced Guardian settings are super cool. It's awesome that we can now control the specific sensitivities of movement and position to make the grid less annoying. However, I did discover that the Guardian is actually limited in maximum size. I actually took this to an empty parking lot on a cloudy day and wasn't able to fully take advantage of it. Sometime I'd like to go out there again with a friend so that I can go into developer mode and turn off the Guardian, and that way I can be free to roam around and they can just tell me if I'm gonna hit something. The tracking itself, while very impressive, still occasionally does a series of little hiccups, which is a little disorienting, but after a minute it's back to normal. I've also been noticing the decreased resolution in your peripheral vision, where if there's something too processor heavy, it'll only fully render what's directly in front of you, and the stuff on the outer edges gets kind of pixelated. But this is okay most of the time, and it's an understandable sacrifice for what this is. Something less acceptable though, I noticed it will occasionally just crap out entirely, and I think this is a heat issue. I've only seen it happen while playing Space Pirate Trainer for long periods of time, which puts a pretty heavy strain on the processor, so I'll play a whole round up to like the level 30 boss, and then at that point with so many things on screen, the whole system just grinds to a halt. The FPS drops to like 1 frame a second, the resolution is like non-existent, sometimes you lose tracking entirely, the audio starts glitching out, the whole thing just crashes. If I let it sit for a while and come back to it when it's had a chance to cool off, then it's fine. So just keep that in mind when doing processor heavy things without stopping. Alright, I think that about does it for this video. Overall, I am thoroughly enjoying VR with this, and I think I'm gonna try a part 3 for this where I try some common accessories and mods for the Oculus Quest. So keep an eye out for that video. If you found this video enjoyable, there's a nifty little button for that. If your jam is all of my adventures like this, then please consider subscribing to me. And until next time, make, sing, hug, and I'll be back with y'all in the next video. The Oculus Quest. Nope, that didn't work at all. Why is this difficult to flourish? Like the headset. Ah, frick. Wow, frick, I can explore. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, look at my gorgeous scribble.